If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson. Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt, and the guy that knows the law and hosts the program, Gary Johnson.
Hi, guys and gals. Isn't it wonderful to be here another week and to be alive and to be there with each other, right? I'm going to ease over a little bit, get a little closer just in case. You never know. I might, toward the end of the program, tell you what to do after the program's over, but there's a high likelihood I'll keep my mouth shut because I suspect all of you are old enough to know.
Well, wait a minute. You got to go a little bit further than that. We had a good friend that said, we tuned in to watch the program, and Gary said, be kind to the person next to you, and gave all this good advice. He said, the next thing I know, we were hand-holding, and everything was good, and then the show went off, and we looked at each other and said, what do we do now?
You know, nobody should ever have to comment on the obvious, should they? I can only do so much. Take it so far. Then it's up to you guys. None of you's criticized, condemned, or complained this week, right? You've all been, to the extent you're able to, you've been impeccable with the word. None of you has taken anything personal, not a single one of you, right? You've decided to do the best you can do and not worry about the best someone else is doing, right? And you've all decided you're never going to assume anything. Now, how many of those, my friends, have you broke this last week?
Oh, my goodness.
I ought to give you a second to count them up.
All of them. Plus, how about the 24-hour rule?
Yeah, have any of you done the 24-hour rule?
I did.
You did?
I used it. Listen, it is so funny that this week I had this great idea to respond to something. Mm-hmm. And I said, wait a minute. And I caught myself and I said, Gary says 24 hours. I waited 24 hours later to the dot, and my response and my decision was completely different. In fact, it made no sense.
The first one, right?
The first one. It made no sense because you know why? It was based upon an emotion. And you have told us time and time again, emotions are crazy. So this little emotion crept in, and I wanted to respond to it, and I did the test, and you, my friend, were right.
I was preparing a presentation yesterday with PowerPoint and that for a seminar I'm going to be teaching out in Colorado at the end of next week. And I was trying to figure out, how do you start it? Really? Mm-hmm. You're looking out at all these attorneys, most of them, in fact, just about all, probably all of them younger than me, when you get right down to it. And they got this whole career in front of them, and it's laid out there, and they're struggling, and they're trying to learn, and they're at a seminar that they paid for to try to learn how to do it. So how do you start it? What do you say to them? And I finally decided that the best thing I could do is tell them that you can do it. That there's no magic to this business. There's some hard work occasionally, but most of the time it's okay. Because in going back on my own experiences, I wasted several years when I first started because I was from the head of 3 Mile up at Dorton, and I couldn't visualize myself as being one of those lawyers that could do stuff. I couldn't.
And is that because you didn't feel worthy that you thought?
I don't know if it's worthy. I just thought that there was some magic that these other lawyers away from here, that they knew something and they were privy to all of this knowledge that I obviously didn't have.
Mhm.
And it took me several years to understand, and it's just flopping around and having some good results when I always thought the good results were just luck. Before I realized that yes, you can do this. And those attorneys out there in that audience, many of them will be just the same way I was. And the reason I'm saying this to you folks is you probably are too. You probably, several of you that may be watching this program have that same thing, thinking that in your mind there's others that can do things better. There's others that have some secret that you don't have, that you may not be worthy, that it's not who you are. Therefore, you're not doing and accomplishing the things you're 100% capable of, or 1,000% capable of. So when I decided I was going to start that program, when I was teaching those young lawyers what to do in law that way, I said to myself, why don't I start my next program on Simply the Law that way, with my friends, to say to you, you can do it. And your chatterbox may be telling you secretly that you can't, but you can.
But Gary, let me ask you, even though you're giving us this great advice, was the turning point for you when you physically had to go to New York City to go up against these attorneys who knew things that you didn't know and were the big shots from the big city, and you found out, as you told me, you said, if I could go up against those guys every day, what a pleasure it would be, because they didn't know things that you didn't know, and in fact, they were inferior to you.
I guess a turning point for me was when I went to one of those major seminars and I listened to what all of those people were saying that were the ones that had the special knowledge. And I brought one of those folks in to work on a case with me with that special knowledge. And I ended up having to do it all. And the stuff he was wanting to do was terrible. And nobody in their right mind would approach it the way he was approaching it. I had to sneak around him and do it. And that's when I realized, no, but if those yo-yos can do it, I can. And you can too. And that's the point I'm trying to make to you, my friends. If you're being held back and you're not doing something, or you're thinking you can't do something, or you think that you're not worthy, get it out of your mind. You are. There's no smarter people in the universe than people from eastern Kentucky and southern West Virginia in this area. Everywhere I go in the country, there will be somebody from eastern Kentucky in some high-level position. That's you guys.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's my point I'm trying to make to you. Do not be held back. Don't do it. Don't let the world will try to hold you back. You can deal with that. It's dealing with yourself.
You know, Gary, we could compile a list from the people that are watching this program of CEO, business owner, on down the list. Even look at our country music highway. The #1 country music star in the world is Chris Stapleton from right here on the highway in Paintsville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's the kind of talent that's here.
It's here, and it's you guys. You've got it. That's the point I'm trying to make to you. And if you don't think you have, reframe how you look at yourself, and you'll be okay. It'll be okay. Because once you reframe it, amazing things will happen in your lives. Let's take a break, and we'll come right back, and we're going to go to the computer. I got some stuff I want to talk to you guys about.
I don't know about you, but I already feel better after he's opened up with this talk. So as Gary always says, scoot a little bit closer. Stay with us. Simply the Law is coming back after you see this.
You notice on the legal advertisement of lawyers that they've made verdicts an issue? Well, guess what? This old boy from eastern Kentucky's got the largest verdict in the state of Kentucky, and nobody's even come close to it. Over my career, I've got my clients verdicts of over $315 million. Yep, I'm glad they made verdicts an issue. Check my record and I'll bet you decide it might be wise to give old Gary a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. You know, Gary, I really liked that opening because I'm sure it made all of our friends think, it made me think, about services that we've offered up, and we've seen maybe other people away from here offer up inferior services at a much higher price, and we're sitting here going, wait a minute, not only can I do that job so much better, I do it so much cheaper, and that gets to be a frustrating point with us.
Which means you need to raise your prices.
Good point. But you got to have the confidence. You've got to have the confidence in yourself. The whole thing you said, the reason the price is cheaper is because we're feeling inferior.
You got to believe in you. And you have to understand there's no such thing as these great experts out there that know all of this stuff. They don't exist. I know. Now they'll tell you they do. But it's not so. After all of these years of being around, seen it all, mostly done it all, I could tell you there's very few people that I would ever consider truly an expert on about anything. Now, okay, why would I say that? There is so much vast knowledge out there that it's almost impossible for one person to get it all in here. They may know more than you know. In other words, a fellow that knows 5 dance steps gets on the dance floor and everybody thinks he can dance and doesn't know any.
That's true. That is true.
You know what I'm saying? And so you are worthy and you can do it, guys and gals. You can. And don't let anything beat you down. You're from the area where they got the smart people. You're part of it. And don't ever let anybody let you hesitate or make you hesitate, especially yourself, on going forward and doing. Let's go to the computer. I want to talk to you about some stuff. There's the number in case any of you need to call me. Website if you need to look at it. In general, please make sure you have underinsurance that protects you and your family. I've talked about this enough. I think all of my friends maybe understand that now. You into ER. Arbitration. Do not sign those documents when you go in a hospital or a nursing home. Okay? Don't do it. Bad, bad, bad. You've given up your rights to a jury at that point. Now, here's an article that just came out, and it was on the AP, and it looks like on this one that they picked it up from the Dayton Daily News. And it's a prosecutor that says a drug maker pushed OxyContin despite the danger signs. It's a really interesting article, and it just came out just the other day on what Massachusetts is doing in regard to the lawsuits that it's filing against the drug companies, especially Purdue Pharma, in regard to the opiate epidemic, the crisis we've got. And how did it get started? I'll tell you a little bit about it. Years ago, several years ago, Greg Stumbo was Attorney General and I was County Attorney, and Wayne Rutherford was County Judge here in Pike County. And we actually filed a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, a joint lawsuit. It was removed by the defendants and it went up into the New York and laid in the New York courts up there for about 5 years before we ever got it sent back to where we could do anything with it. But all of this stuff had not come out at that point in time. And those cases ended up being resolved. And there's more litigation going on now from just about every county in Kentucky has filed, and they're in the MDL. In fact, I believe I represent Pike, Knott, and Floyd in that MDL on the opioids. But I want to give you a little bit of information in regard to where it all got started, so that you'll see how people made billions of dollars, this family did. And they become philanthropists, and they donated to the Smithsonian Institute and all of these big fancy charities just because they had all these billions of dollars. And they made those billions of dollars on the backs of humanity all across this country from their drug OxyContin. It's that simple. We'll talk to you a little bit more about this lawsuit, but let's take another break and then we'll come right back and then we'll finish this up.
I want to have a question for Gary when I come back that I'm sure is going to lead into the information that he's got. This is an important program. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Gary C. Johnson after you see this.
I'm attorney Gary C. Johnson. I hate these commercials as bad as you do. I have no choice if I want to let you know that I'm in the business of practicing law, representing injured people, except to do this commercial. I don't fish, I don't golf, I get money for injured people. Check my record, go to GaryCJohnson.com, and I'll bet you if you've been hurt, you might want to give me a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. I know you're going to delve into this and give us some more information, but as I was listening to you talk, and you started this program out about the wonderful people of this region, one of the facts that we know about this region is the work has been hard. It's been in the coal mines. You know, people have suffered injuries. We knew about the roads that we've had. We knew about the cancer rate. So when you look at the region, our people, our good people, have faced a lot of tough situations that have required them to have medication. And I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking this is almost like preying upon a region or a group of people that were needing help, and instead they got an addiction.
This area, southern West Virginia, where the coal mines are, was targeted by this company. And they sent their representatives in to tell the doctors to start prescribing OxyContin, which was supposed to be for cancer patients. But doctors can prescribe off what they call off-label. And they told the doctors, this is a long-lasting drug and it releases over time. And because of that, it's not addictive. And you can prescribe it to your patients instead of these other drugs that you would normally prescribe, and your patients will not become addicted. So everybody that has an injury then in this area goes in, doctor prescribes them OxyContin because it's not addictive, when the company knew it was more addictive than heroin. Now think about that. Think about the cruelty of that. And all of these people with these injuries, and some of them even minor injuries, ended up, if they had any propensity to be an addict, they become an addict. Let's go back to the computer. I got some stuff I want to show you. I got all of this out of this article, okay? Purdue Pharma was the company that did it, and they started this plan back even before the 90s, because back before up into the 90s, it was illegal to prescribe opiates in this country. So the first thing they had to do, and let's go back off of this. The first thing they did in this scheme plan, this grand plan, was to start showing people with chronic pain and all the pain they had, so they could get Congress to change the law so that these opiates could be prescribed to people, because it was inhumane to have these people suffer without these drugs for their pain. And they use cancer patients and things like that, and they got the law changed to allow the opiates to be prescribed. That was the first step. Then they get OxyContin approved to be sold for cancer patients for extreme, excruciating pain. But then they market it through their representatives to doctors for everything and tell the doctors it's not addictive. It's the greatest thing it's ever been.
So, Gary, you're basically telling us this was a premeditated business plan.
Big businessman, and it worked. It worked. Okay, back to the computer. Got some stuff I want to go over with my friends. Give you some information. Massachusetts is the first state to personally name the company's executives in a complaint. That's just the other day they filed this. It named 16 current and former executives and board members, including the CEO, Craig Landau, Richard Sackler, who's the family that owns it, and other members of the Sackler family. Now, why did they do this, name these people? Well, Richard Sackler, in the 90s, when they first launched this, told the audience at the launch of OxyContin, when they got it approved, to imagine a series of natural disasters, an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, a hurricane, and a blizzard. So just imagine those in his speech he gave them. Then he says to them, the launch of OxyContin tablets will be followed by a blizzard of prescriptions that will bury the competition. And that's what he told them in that speech.
Wow.
Okay? Now, the Attorney General's office in Massachusetts also stated in that article that after this 1990s prediction, over the next 20 years from the 90s there, the Sacklers made the boast come true. They created a man-made disaster through the opioid crisis. Now, they're trying to blame it on everything else in the world because as an offshoot of that, you got all this heroin problem and fentanyl and all of that. But you got to go back to where it started, and that was this company. The blizzard of dangerous prescriptions buried children, parents, and grandparents. And the burials continue today. 72,000 Americans were buried in 2017 because of overdose. That's more than car wrecks. The Vietnam War didn't take that many lives. It's amazing what's happened because of this opioid crisis. Now, the article states that the Sacklers showed a blatant disregard for human life. And guess what the Sacklers wrote in an email that this Massachusetts Attorney General got? That the company would have to hammer on the abusers in every possible way, describing them as the problem, the people that become addicts.
So, your fault for taking it. It's your fault for becoming addicted to it. It's your low willpower that created the epidemic. It's not the drug we prescribed you to stop the pain from a doctor who was told it was not going to be a drug that was going to hurt you this way.
This generation of our young people that we've actually lost, basically, a great number of them, would never, ever have experimented with heroin because they knew how dangerous it was. And they were taught and they heard and they knew it was a horror story to experiment with heroin. But yet, why wouldn't they experiment with something that wasn't addictive that would give you a great big high? OxyContin. Therefore, they did it. Kids, young kids that would have never touched heroin, ended up addicted to opiates because of OxyContin. And yet this company wants to blame the people that ended up addicted. And they knew, I guess the thing about it is, they knew it was more addictive than heroin when they put it on the market. And they knew that if they could get it in the hands of people, that there would be a blizzard of prescription, because there would be such a demand for it, because all these people were going to become addicts. And they needed the drug. And they made billions of dollars from it.
Gary, when you mentioned the family and the Slackers talking there in the 90s, were they talking to investors? Is this a publicly traded company? I mean, were there other people getting this information just so they all could make money on this?
It was a closely held family company at that point in time.
At that point in time?
They owned it.
Yeah.
Let's take our last break and then we'll come right back.
You know, when you get the information behind the scenes and you start thinking, well, was this our fault or my kid's fault or the family member's fault? Now that Gary's given you some information, you can see it was a predetermined business plan. Stay with us. Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson comes back after this.
Insurance companies will test lawyers to see if they know what they're doing. Luckily, they tested me. And because of that, over the years, I've been able to get verdicts for my clients in excess of $315 million in the state of Kentucky, most of which are just in eastern Kentucky. We proved we know what we're doing. We proved we can go in front of a jury. And guess what? Most of my cases settle now. Wonder why? Give us a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. Gary, you started out this program about talking to people about not being worthy and thinking that things are your fault. You just gave us a story that just enlightened our people that maybe some of the problems and addictions were not our fault. We were preyed on.
The real culprits are the people that put it out there knowing the dangers of it, hid those dangers, and promoted it as being safe. And a lot of people, probably you know people, my friends that are watching, maybe some in your family, got caught up in it. And it's the greatest tragedy that's ever hit in this country, in my opinion. And it's all because of greed from a family that wanted to get rich. They started it. And now, I don't know where it's going to end. But it's a tragedy that the victims are shunned. They're treated like they're dogs. And there's not a single one of them that wants to be an addict. That's just the way it is.
And the word that was used in there was hammer. Hammer the abusers, putting more on top of it. Thank you so much for tuning in. What a great program tonight and information. On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thanks for tuning in to Simply the Law. We'll see you next week at this same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.